Students, welcome back to our YouTube channel DENTEZY. Let's make dentistry easy with DENTEZY. So today we are going to discuss about a very important topic and very conceptualized topic, which is moment to force ratio. Students usually get confused between the how the MF ratios are important, what are MF ratios, and how the tooth movement take place. I understand that it's a difficult topic, but this is very easy if you know the concept. So today we'll describe about the concept behind the moment to force ratio. So let's get started. So we all know basically one term which is called as center of mass or center of gravity. We have discussed in this when we were in students in plus 1 plus 2. We all have studied about it, about center of mass and center of gravity. Basically, center of mass is a point where the whole mass of the body is said to be concentrated. So that is center of mass. But in case of tooth, if we describe about the tooth, it is being surrounded by the various other structures like PDL and the alveolar bone. So this is constrained by the supporting structures. So in this particularly scenario, a point through which the whole mass of the body is said to be concentrated, or whenever a force is applied through this point, there is the bodily movement or the translation of the tooth takes place. So this particular point is called as the center of resistance. For more details, you can check the previous lectures about the basic concepts. So now coming back to the concept, we know that the center of resistance of a tooth is somewhere between the root apices and the alveolar crest, midway between both the points. So every time it's not possible for us to apply a force passing through the center of resistance. In most of the cases, the force is applied at the incisal area, the bracket area, on the labial surface of the crown portion of the tooth. So it means whenever force is applied to the incisor bracket, it will show some kind of rotation. That rotational tendency will create a moment. So in this particular case, depending upon the magnitude and amount of force applied to it, it will create the rotational tendency and hence the tipping of the tooth. The crown will move in one direction, whereas the root will move into the opposite direction. Hence, this will create a tipping of the tooth depending upon the magnitude of the force applied. Whereas, whenever a force is directed through the center of resistance of a tooth, the body will translate itself from one position to another position. So that will lead to the bodily movement of the tooth. Now coming back to the previous diagram, whenever a force is applied through the incisor bracket, it will create a moment and hence the crown will move in one direction and the root will move into the opposite direction. So that is the uncontrolled tipping. But always, coming back to the concept, whenever a force is applied through the bracket area, through the incisal area pasted on the labial surface of the crown, it will create a rotatory movement and it will lead to the uncontrolled tipping in which the crown moves in one direction and the root moves into the opposite direction, into the another direction. Now this kind of movement is not always required or is not always desirable. So what happens in that case is, another point is, it is not always practical to apply a force passing through the center of resistance of the tooth, which is practically not possible because center of resistance is midway between the root apex and the alveolar crest. So how it has to be managed? So it is managed by a counter moment or counterbalancing force which is being applied at the root apex area so that the undesirable movement is constricted. So the amount of force or the magnitude of force which is applied to the incisor bracket is termed as MF, and the counterbalancing force or the couple or the moment which is generated to counteract this force is considered to be MC. Depending upon the magnitude of both the forces being generated, there are four different scenarios. Let's discuss those situations. We'll discuss about the four situations one by one. First of all, we'll describe about a situation in which MC by MF ratio is equal to 0. That will lead to the pure tipping of the tooth. What does it actually means? It means that whenever a force is applied at the incisor bracket, that time if the counterbalancing force applied is 0 is equal to 0. In that situation, if there is no counterbalancing force, this force MF will show its effect and it will lead to the crown movement and it will lead to the rotatory tendencies and hence uncontrolled tipping shall be seen. So that is the situation 1. Situation 2 here is if MC by MF is equal to 1. What does it means? It means if the counterbalancing force and the MF they both are equal. If both the forces are equal, it will lead to the bodily movement or the translation of the tooth similar way as if the force is directed to the center of resistance of the tooth. Situation 3 is if MC by MF is greater than 0 but less than 1. What does it means? It simply means if the MC applied and MF values MC is more than 1 but more than 0 but less than 1. It means the counterbalancing force is applied but it is not more than the MF value. It means the MF value will be greater and hence the crown movement will be more, but there will be little or constricted root movement. The limited root movement shall be there. So in that case there will be the limited root movement or controlled tipping shall be seen. The last situation in which the MC by MF is greater than 1. In this particularly scenario, the counterbalancing force which is applied to the tooth to control the undesirable tooth movement is greater as compared to the MF values. It means that there will be limited tooth movement at the crown portion but the root will move. So in that case, the root movement shall be seen. That particularly root movement is called as torquing. So basically, the relationship between the force and the counterbalancing couple is often expressed as moment to force ratio. This is also called as MF ratio. So the MF, this was all about the MF ratio and it differs according to the type of tooth movement. So this was all about the MF ratios. If you like the video, please like, share and subscribe and stay tuned. Thank you.